Ramai ki jai, Shishi Gornitai ki jai. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our special event organized by the College of Vedic Studies, Wisdom Talks, special edition with His Holiness Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj. Let us welcome him by loudly chanting Hari Bo. Versteht jemand kein Englisch? Ich glaube, die meisten verstehen Englisch. Möchte jemand eine Übersetzung vom Englischen ins Deutsche? Good. Then we'll just speak in English today. So we also have some audience listening online today, so we would like to welcome them as well. And today we have actually a question and answer session, so that will be the main focus. We will have quite some time set aside for questions, so I'm sure you have brought your questions as well. And Maharaj will give some introduction about the topic of the power of doing nothing, so he will stimulate us. And then all of you are invited to ask questions. We also have the opportunity for those who watch online on YouTube. You can just send your messages in the chat box, and then kannst du vielleicht schauen. So I would like to briefly introduce our special guest, His Holiness Svayam Bhagavan Keshava. You all know him well. Maybe is anyone here for the first time? That's an important question. Yeah, I never saw you. What is your name?
Annie.
Annie. Thank you for coming. You know Maharaj? No. Good.
Good.
So Maharaj is a traveling preacher in our Hare Krishna movement, and he's traveling very extensively all over the world. He's preaching in the corporate world, academic world, and also in spiritual communities. And he's also online on YouTube. He's sharing wisdom that breathes. So that's something he tries to promote, spiritual knowledge that is very relevant and which can be applied in everyday's life. Thank you, Maharaj, for coming.
So
and Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone. So thank you so much for coming. It's a real honor to be here. And yeah, questions and answers is such a wonderful thing, because what it does is it takes a philosophy, but then it brings it down to the reality of our lives and makes it, I guess, very relevant and very applicable in your day-to-day journey. So I hope today will be rewarding for you. We'll just begin by doing a little singing. And that's the best part of tonight. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Jai Radha Madhava Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. I think there will be few more people coming. If you can just move a little forward. There's still some space here. Vishnu Yagya.
Back seats cost more.
Yes. Prabhu, come. Cello.
So, Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And yes, this evening is questions and answers, so I won't say too much. But we did have a topic, so I guess I should say something about it. And although the topic was the power of doing nothing. The Bhagavad Gita is such a wonderful book because practically anything you want to learn, you can learn it from the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to learn how to be a good leader, then in the 3rd chapter, Krishna is training Arjuna on how to be a good leader. And essentially he says the most important thing is your own example. Because sometimes people's character speaks so loud that other people can't hear what they're saying. If you want to know how to find purpose, then in the 4th chapter, in the 5th chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is teaching, Krishna is teaching Arjuna how to live in the world and navigate this lifespan, perhaps of 100 years that he may have. And how to find what you're meant to do. Einstein says everyone is a genius, but if you convince a fish that it has to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's a failure. So we're so apt to performing someone else's duty or someone else's purpose, thinking that we'll receive more acceptance, more acknowledgement, more appreciation, that we are drawn into an inauthentic life. If you want to know how to find love, the 8 rules of love, then you can also learn what is actual real love. People say, I love you. But if we don't know who I am, if I don't know who you are, and if I don't really have a definition of love, how much substance does that statement even have? One time, what we do as monks sometimes is we just turn up on a random street and just stop people and start speaking to them about spiritual things for the whole day. And so what I decided to do one day was every single person I stopped, I asked them, can you define love for me? What's your definition of love? And it was so amazing, like everyone wants to love, everyone is seeking love. Some people are falling in love, some people are falling out of love, some people have lost faith that they'll ever find love, but love is on everyone's mind. And the amazing thing is that no one really could define what is love. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita really teaches us about love and what that really means. So practically anything, if you want to know how to avoid burnout, and Krishna talks so much about lifestyle in the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to know how to always be determined, how to overcome procrastination, you can learn it from the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to do so many things, but the Bhagavad Gita also teaches you the power of doing nothing. Did you know that doing nothing can actually transform your life? Are you happy to hear that? We always think we transform our life by doing something. But did you know that there's a way to transform your life by doing absolutely nothing? Can anyone guess what I'm referring to? The power of doing nothing. Okay, Prabhu at the back.
If we're doing nothing bad, it's...
If we're doing nothing bad. Yeah. Okay, good. Yes. Yes, Prabhu.
Maybe devotion for Krishna, because then we don't have reactions, and that's...
Okay, so you're saying when we act, but when we act in a spiritual way, then we're not getting any reaction. So in that sense, it's not really acting in the world, a karmic action. Okay, good. Any other ideas? Yeah.
Not to open the mouth in the inappropriate situation.
Not to open your mouth in an inappropriate situation. Yes, they say the art of conversation is not just to say the right thing at the right time, but to leave unsaid the wrong thing at the tempting moment. Yeah? Yeah.
Maybe just to observe and not to jump in everything what comes up.
But observing is also doing something, right? You're looking, observing. Okay, good. Now I'm just, yeah. Yes?
Let the heart connect to the intuition and let it myself lead.
Okay, don't try to push anything. Just let your heart connect with intuition. In the language of the Bhagavad Gita, we call intuition super consciousness. There's a soul and there's a super soul, a super consciousness next. And if they connect, then you get intuition, you get guidance, you get inspiration. So, yeah, let it be. Let go and let God. Yeah.
And if our enemies like lust and anger, envy come up and we do nothing, it's actually...
Okay, so when the enemies come, the 6 enemies, then lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, ego, to do nothing, to not act on them.
Python yoga, they do in Srimad Bhagavatam. Python yoga?
Python yoga. Who knows here about Python yoga? You're not going to find that anywhere in the world. Python yoga. This is a profound teaching of the Bhagavatam. That saintly people are like pythons. Anyone ever seen a python? Okay. Pythons, apparently, I've not seen one myself, but they just open their mouth and they stay there, like with their mouth open. And they just wait for something to come in. And if it comes, then bon appetit. And if not, no worries. So they don't endeavor, they don't over-endeavor, they don't try to search things out frantically. Everyone in the world is searching. But the saintly people just know the art of how to let things come to them and not over-endeavor or over-collect. Good. Tried it out? Okay, yeah. Okay. Not so good. Working on it. Yes, Jadabharat, 5th canto. Yes, look,
The soul does nothing, apparently, according to the Shastras.
The soul does nothing. Yeah, if you think you're the doer, you're actually in ego, actually, the Bhagavad Gita says. Remind me the verse. Prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasa ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Ahankara is a very interesting word. Aham, the word ego in English comes from the Sanskrit word aham. So aham means I, or sense of I-ness, and kara means the doer. So ahankara means I think I'm the doer, I think I'm the one, you know. Once there was a man, he was praying, you know, he had to go to an interview and he couldn't find a parking space, so he was praying to God, like, I need to find a parking space, like I got an interview, I'm going to be late, I'm going to, please God, please God, please God. Then he turned the corner and he found a parking space and he looked up and he said, don't worry, I found one. So it's interesting, we always slip into this mode of thinking that I'm the doer, I'm the one controlling it. So, yes. Yes, so many ideas, the power of doing nothing, thank you. I will use these for future seminars, by your grace. The specific thing I was thinking of was, which some of you mentioned, is the power to resist temptation. In the world we're living in today, temptation, addiction, this is one of the biggest things. One of the biggest growing industries in the world is the industry of recovery. Because people get addicted by all kinds of things, and it begins with temptation. And those who have learnt the art to do absolutely nothing, in those times when temptation, the pushings of different impulses within our being, when they come and you're able to do absolutely nothing, you're just able to observe it, watch it, acknowledge it, and do absolutely nothing. The people who have developed that kind of strength, that kind of restraint, that kind of control over their impulse are the ones who actually achieve incredible things in this world. One of our teachers, Rupa Goswami, he says there are 6 broad pushings that are within our being. He says in a very beautiful verse, Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam Jiva vegam udarapasto vegam etan vegan yo vishahe tadhira sarvam apimam pritivim shashishyat. He said the first pushing that comes within you is the vacho vegam, the urge to speak. Here. So one who is able to do nothing, when that urge to say something, that urge to respond, that urge to write a comment on Facebook, one who is able to control that urge is a happy person. Manasa, the urges of the mind comes up with so many things, so many ideas, so many plans. And one who is able to just watch their mind, observe their mind, without taking everything that their mind takes so seriously. We take our mind so seriously. That person is successful and happy in their life. Krodha, anger. Anger comes up within us, and then we just let it loose. which is not able to deal with that anger. We have to express it. We have to unleash it. We have to let someone else feel the wrath of it. And that anger, one letter short of danger. So then it makes our life miserable. Jiva, the tongue, and the belly. And this impulse to eat. Eating is such a big part of spirituality. You may be happy to know that. But it also means controlling your eating is also such a big part of spiritual life. When you eat the right things at the right time, in the right quantity, in the right way, chewing it the right amount of times, it all makes a difference, and that eating has a profound effect on your consciousness. And then the final one is the impulse, the pushing towards gratification of someone else's body, which comes within each person. Perhaps the most intense of enjoyments in this world. And you can think of stories in which someone hasn't been able to control these pushings in every single one of these, whether it's speech, mind, anger, the tongue, the impulse of the genitals, and it's led to so much trouble in their life. And so sometimes in spirituality we focus so much on the things we need to do, which is good. Of course we must, but remember the power of also doing nothing is very, very profound. And therefore what Krishna actually, when you look in the Bhagavad Gita, he actually says many, many things about temptation. Temptation has many, many characteristics. And when we learn all of the characteristics of temptation, then we can actually learn this art of doing nothing when temptation comes. Okay, I could say much more on that, but maybe I'll just stop there and kind of open it up. Perhaps you have some questions on this particular topic, or perhaps you have some questions on other things. Do you? Okay, yes.
We have some question here coming in on YouTube. This is Masa Katic. She's acting. Not acting can be difficult, but I think it is referring to something doing nothing, resolving problems, but believing in Krishna to do it and believe it will be resolved. This is a comment, I'm sorry. This is not a question. There's no question here.
Okay, so shall we begin with the room?
By living a life like Jada Bharat was a question. Oh, that was referring to when you asked.
The Python yoga, yeah. Okay. All right, so we begin here, yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. So I would like to know, at what point do we have the control of the urges that you now described? And why I ask this? Because I've been practicing for quite some time, and I still sometimes cannot control my urge of anger, for example, or urge of tongue sometimes, and so on. Even though I know, I'm aware of all these things, but it's just like it has control over you. But even though you really try, like in spiritual life and so on, and Krishna is the one actually who can take it away, as I understood. So maybe how? I mean, I just want sometimes. I mean, it's not that I have to be perfect, but when I make a mistake because of not controlling something, then I feel very, very bad, and I would like to avoid it, and be sometimes, this dhira, not disturbed person, but sometimes it's not so possible. So,
yeah, we should be dhira, not dhira because we made a mistake and we're kind of like, yeah, I should be dhira. I made a mistake. I should be sober. I should be unaffected by my mistake. Not exactly like that. When we make a mistake, when we fall short of where we want to be, that guilt that comes is actually good. Because without guilt, without a sense of feeling, that sense of feeling of imperfection, that's what actually gives us the drive to improve. Right? Once there was, in spiritual culture, those who have taken spiritual initiations, they are meant to do a mantra at the 3 times in the day, when the sun rises, when the sun is at the apex, and when the sun sets. And so one Brahmana was very strict in doing that, and he would do it without fail. And then on one particular day, he was just about to miss the time period of his, very strict practice of chanting his mantra. And it's said that the personification of Kali, who's meant to deviate people from spirituality, came up to him and said, "Hey, you're gonna miss your mantra. Do your mantra." So he quickly, all right, did his mantra just in the nick of time. And then he said to Kali, "Why did you remind me? You're supposed to be deviating people from spiritual practice." He said, No, see, if you had missed your mantra, then you would have felt I'm low, I'm imperfect, and that lamentation, that feeling of imperfection would have caused you to actually improve. But now you're doing everything seemingly perfectly, but unconsciously you're rooted in your own illusion that you're perfect. So sometimes that sense of, sometimes our weakness can become our biggest strength. If that weakness brings humility, if that weakness brings urgency. And sometimes your strength can become your biggest weakness, if that strength makes you proud, if that strength makes you complacent. And therefore, in mistake, in falling short of our ideal, that guilt that comes is actually something very positive to ignite our journey forward, but in the right measurement and processed in the right way, which then leads us to understand, why was it that I failed? What can I learn from that? How can I do better next time? And therefore, one Christian monk writes a book, Falling Upwards. He said, I reflected on my life, and I think if I would sum up my life in 2 words, I was falling upwards. Because at every moment I was short of my ideals, but then I processed it in such a way that it actually helped me to elevate my consciousness. So that is our situation. We are weak, we make mistakes, we are going in and out of spiritual consciousness. And so, we have to digest those mistakes to create progress. Some thoughts? Yes?
Very well. You said that it's obviously good to have guilt because it inspires you to get better, but I feel like sometimes it also spirals, like you spiral into like self-pity instead. You're like, oh, I'm so useless, I'm so bad, and you kind of feel incapable of doing it better, and maybe also the ego is stopping you. Like you feel bad, but you feel like you cannot do anything about it. And how would you like kick yourself
that's why
out?
Guilt in and of itself is not enough. Guilt has to be accompanied by encouragement. Guilt has to be accompanied by an inspiring vision and a plan. Guilt has to be also accompanied by a gratitude and an appreciation for what you have done in your life. Sometimes I tell people, don't just look how far you are away from the ideal. Also look back and see how far you've come from where you were. And when we give ourselves that credit, when we actually understand that, yes, I have progressed, I may not be perfect, but I've progressed, then along with that guilt, we feel the hope. Therefore, guilt and hope must go hand in hand. And therefore, one must know the art of how to also empower hope in their life. This is a very, very essential part of spiritual progress. So yes, guilt in and of itself is not enough, but when accompanied by these other things. All right? Okay, we'll go ahead.
Hare Krishna. The question's based on all about doing nothing. How long should you sit on it before you act? And what are the steps spiritually to act in a good way to make sure it's an outcome not affecting the modes or in the right mode?
Yeah, so when I give this talk, I explain that temptation has different characteristics. I tell people temptation is depletive, it's restrictive, it's elusive, it's addictive, and it's also instructive. So I'll just focus on the fifth one because that relates to what you're saying. When we get a temptation, it's actually very instructive. Every temptation that comes through your mind, through your consciousness, is very instructive because it still tells you something about what your material attachments, what your material desires, where you're falling short. Your temptations also tell you something about your lifestyle right now and where you may be exposing yourself. Your temptations also tell you something about your establishment in the spiritual process and what you may be lacking, because the spiritual connection that we have is the very antidote to that temptation. So actually, when you look at the temptation that comes through your consciousness, instead of acting on it, what you can do is educate yourself from it, because it tells you a lot about yourself and it tells you a lot about what you need to work on. Yeah, when temptation comes, don't do anything, but learn from it. And when you learn from it, then you understand what it is you need to do in your life to ensure that it doesn't come back. See, temptation is also instructive in the sense, the other one I tell people is temptation is sensitive. So basically, when we get a certain temptation, sometimes people ask me, what should I do in that moment when it comes? And I'm like, you have to try to make sure it doesn't even come to that point. Because most of the time, if it comes to that point, most people lose. And what I mean by temptation is sensitive is that we have to protect the fences which protect us. And so when you get a temptation, a lot of it also reveals your lifestyle, which is allowing that temptation to come in. And so when a temptation comes, it's a reminder to us that I need to protect the fences that protect me. Because, it's like you need to keep a little bit of a distance away from the things that are going to degrade you. Healthy distance. So like this, the point that I'm making is that when temptation comes, you don't do anything, but you should still learn from it and move forward. I hope that answers. Was that on? Was okay. All right. Yeah, I think.
So I'm wondering who is responsible for the spiritual progress of an individual?
Who's responsible for the spiritual progress of an individual? The individual. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Iti te jnanam akhyatam guyat guyataram maya vimrashe tadashe shena yathechasi tatha guru yat icha. Krishna says to Arjuna, I've given you all the knowledge, I've given you all the insights, think about it, reflect on it, challenge it, introspect on it, analyze it, and then do what you want to do. So you have the power of choice. You have the power to say, this is not how my life is going to end. You have the power to make decisions. And you are driving your destiny. We're not in control of the results, but we are in control of our endeavor. And that endeavor is what's driving your spiritual connection with God. And so we can never place the responsibility for our spiritual advancement on anyone else. That's why things like victim mentality are so limiting. Because what we begin to do in victim mentality is we begin to give the power of the destination of our life to things outside of our control. And therefore, one Brahmana, he reflected on his life and he was thinking, why did I suffer in my life? And then he says this incredible verse, Nayam jano me sukha dukha hetur na devatatma griha karma kalaha mana param karanama mananti samsara chakram parivartayadyat. He looks back at his life and he says, why did I suffer? Nayam jano. I used to think other people are the cause of my suffering. I was wrong. Na devatatma. Later on I thought that maybe the devas, the gods, were conspiring against me, causing my suffering. I was wrong. Graha. Then later on I thought it was my astrology. Oh no, the moon, the Rahu, the wrong house. I was wrong. Karma. Later on I thought maybe I'm suffering because of my own karma. I was wrong. Kal. Then later on I thought maybe I was suffering because of time, because in time everyone suffers. I was wrong. Mana. Param Karanam. The Param Karanam, the ultimate root cause of all my suffering is my own mind. Because I allowed my mind to be uncontrolled. I allowed my mind to be negative. I allowed my mind to place all the emphasis on everything outside instead of the inner world. And he says, I'm not a victim. I'm in control. I have to control my own mind. Krishna says, elevate yourself with the help of your mind. So we are responsible. That's not to say people don't go through acute situations in the world which make it difficult in their progress. Of course. But that's the great art. How to turn pain into progress. How to turn problems into purpose. But we are always in control. Otherwise, God would not be a very nice person. So you want to respond to that? I'm sure, because I know you knew the answer to that question. So you must be getting at something deeper.
Yeah, it's because of Guru Nasyat Svajano Nasasyat.
Okay.
This verse, because we are surrounded. If Arjuna did not get some inspiration from Krishna, then nothing would happen. So we have to get inspiration from outside. And then I thought, if we are alone and we are only responsible by ourselves, but we have our guru, we have our svajanas and parents, they have to give spiritual input. If we don't have these people, then we are lost.
Yes. No, it's a very good point. Okay, so I'll just, because some of you may not be familiar. Prabhu's your name? Vishnu Yagya. Vishnu Yagya? Vishnu Yagya Prabhu is quoting a verse from the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. Guru Nasashat Svajano Nasasyat. It's basically explaining one should not become a guru if they can't deliver their dependence. So it seems in this verse the emphasis is being put on the teacher, that the teacher is responsible for uplifting the disciple, whereas here I'm sitting here saying it's up to the disciple. So who is it, the guru or the disciple? It's the responsibility of the guru to inspire the disciple to progress in spiritual life. So whose responsibility is it? It's still the responsibility of the individual. But the guru, the spiritual teachers are coming in and saying, I'll take responsibility to inspire. I don't have to take that responsibility, but I, by my own spiritual accomplishment and by whatever power I've been given by the divine, I'm going to try to invest that in this individual and take responsibility. But ultimately the responsibility lies with the disciple. Just like, say for example, it's said in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam that if someone becomes a pure devotee, then how many generations get liberation? So what does that actually mean? Does it mean that there it is, just like everyone's just like boom, in one go, just gone? It means that in those generations everyone will be given the opportunity. Everyone will be given full facility because of your spiritual accomplishment to have that chance of entering eternity. But they have to do it. Because at the end of the day, Krishna wants to have a relationship of love with you. And that means you have to love Krishna, not someone else. So yes, but like this, individuals will come in our life and inspire us and take responsibility for inspiring us. Is that okay?
Yeah. And there's a saying, you can bring the
horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Now I have a question here from Nectar of Kirtan. Hare Krishna Maharaj, you've mentioned that Gita teaches us how to defeat procrastination. Can you say how does one do it?
You have to read the Gita. Broadly speaking, there are 4 reasons why we procrastinate. One reason is because we are not inspired by enough, sufficiently, by what we're trying to achieve. Lack of inspiration. When something has captured your imagination, then you must walk towards it. But when something is kind of like you haven't fully invested your heart in it, sometimes I tell this story that someone was going to walk the Himalayas to the peak. So he got to the base camp, he went into the hotel, he came out the next morning, he handed in his keys and he was walking out. There was a huge snowstorm. So the receptionist said, hey, where are you going? There's a snowstorm, there's a weather warning. No one hikes in this kind of weather. You think you're going to make it to the top? And he looked at them and he said, I'm going. My heart has already reached the peak. Therefore, for my body to reach is just a formality. Has your heart reached? The heart is like the charioteer and the body is the chariot, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says. So wherever the heart goes, the body must go. So the first reason why we procrastinate, lack of inspiration in the goal. But imagine you're inspired by something, there could be another reason why you procrastinate. And that's lack of a plan of understanding how I'm going to get there. You may have something amazing you want to achieve, but we procrastinate because we have no idea what's the next step that I got to take on that journey there. So then I tell people the next problem is lack of orientation. But then, even if you know where you want to go, you're inspired by it, you know what steps to take on there, the third reason why we procrastinate is because lack of conviction. We just don't think we can do it. We're overcome by the fear of failure, or we just think we're inadequate, or I've never achieved anything in my life, I'm not going to be able to do this either. And so the way to overcome that is by good association. So generally when you're inspired by something, you have orientation of knowing how to get there, and you have the habitat, the surroundings of association and other things to give you the conviction, then you won't procrastinate. So generally people who procrastinate are lacking in one of these 3 things, or usually all 3. And so what Krishna does in the Bhagavad Gita is he inspires Arjuna. He tells Arjuna, like, this is where you can go. Natad bhashayate shuryo na shashanko na pavaka yad gatva na nivartante. Go to my supreme abode. It's not illumined by electricity or the sun or the moon. Once you go there, you'll never come back. Inspire. And then what Krishna says is karma yoga. This is what you need to do. These are the steps you need to do to get there. And then what does Krishna tell Arjuna? He tells him all about the modes of nature, how to live in this world to get the strength from sattva to actually walk that path. So when you have inspiration, orientation and association, then you won't procrastinate. Try out. So, procrastinate. Okay, yes.
I have a question. Where does harshness in character comes from? Like in which kind of aspect of Krishna? Like,
Which? Can you start that again?
where does harshness, rigidity in character comes from?
What's the first word? Harshness. Oh, harshness. Rigidity of character. Where does that come from?
Yes. How is it present in Krishna? Like, is that present in Krishna or not?
Harshness. Harshness is to act without understanding the full situation. So in this world we jump to conclusions very quickly on people. We don't give the time. Therefore harshness is a very, very strong quality in this world. We assume things very, very quickly. Yeah? But they say assume. It makes an ass of you and me. Assume. just in case you're wondering. Harshness means we make so many assumptions and we jump to a conclusion and then we bring someone down. So how does that exist in Krishna? Krishna is so magnanimous that he's just looking for something good. So for example, Putana comes to Krishna and she wants to kill him. But what does Krishna do? He just sees the good. No, she offered me milk. Yeah. So you can say in Krishna's pastimes, the way harshness exists is that Krishna doesn't wait to see the full story. He just sees something good and he's like, give mercy. Like Mahaprabhu's like very kind. Like he just sees one good thing, give mercy. So they're just looking for an opportunity. Jiva Goswami says, why does Krishna like to hear the Maha Mantra? Why does Krishna like to hear his name heard? Anyone know? Why does Krishna like to hear his name heard?
Yeah, you told in the lecture once that Krishna really likes to give mercy for his devotees.
Yeah,
so when he
that's what
hears
Jiva.
you, it's like, oh.
Yes, Jiva Goswami says that because Krishna, he becomes very happy when his name is heard because he thinks, now I have an opportunity to give mercy. Wonderful, chant more, give more mercy. So like that, he even exists within Krishna. So he jumps to a good conclusion, a positive conclusion. Always, Jagannath. Big eyes to try to see what is the good where I can give. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for your lecture. I observe in myself the urge to speak very often uncontrolled. I like to share of my problems or whatever. And we know that actually if we can control our habits of eating and speaking, we can actually control everything else. And can you maybe elaborate on maybe your own example, how important it is to try to
the eating
do that.
Specifically?
Specifically the speaking actually.
Oh, how to control your speech and why controlling speech is so important, like that?
Yes.
Yes. Once I was on the London Underground and I saw an advert, and it said, if all the words you said today were written all over your body, would you still look beautiful? Oh, okay. Don't think I'm beautiful anyway. Yeah, it's so, the words are, our words are so powerful. Word, sound, vibration. You see, everything begins from sound. Right? Even the material creation begins from sound. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So everything begins from sound. And so it said, just as the whole material creation begins from sound, the liberation from material existence also begins from sound. Therefore, the Vedanta Sutra says, anavriti shabda. Shabda means spiritual sound. And so sound is incredibly powerful. Therefore, Krishna says, anudvega karam vakyam satyam priyam hitam chayat swadhyaya bhyasanam cheva vanmayam tapa uchyate. That you have to speak words which are satyam, truthful, priyam, pleasing, hitam, beneficial. Apparently there's a story of Socrates, and someone came to Socrates and said, I got something to tell you, I got something to tell you. He said, okay, just one question. Is it true? The person said, well, could be, maybe not, I'm really not sure. He said, okay. Is it something nice? He said, not really. He said, does this have any benefit for me, what you're actually going to tell me? He said, not really. He said, okay, see you later. So how much of our speech would make it through that filter? It's very interesting, that story, because it exactly matches what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So speech has such an effect on consciousness, and we know that consciousness is driving everything. And therefore, to quote another thing that Socrates said, he said, wise people speak because they have something to say. Fools speak because they have to say something. Along with the freedom of speech, let us also remind people of their freedom to think before they speak. Freedom of speech, yes, but also freedom of thought. Think about it. No one's charging you for that one. So we're so apt to pollute our own consciousness by our words. It's amazing what people remember. And you said on the 28th of January 1996, that morning when it was raining, you said, is that what you remembered? Yeah, because people remember. Sound is so powerful. Sound have ignited revolutions in the world. Speeches. Sounds have, I have a dream that one day I'll be judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. Sound is so powerful. See how much when people, isn't it? Orators like that, they can send people into ecstasy. So it's powerful, isn't it? Sound is such a powerful, and we all have it. We all have it. We can launch it. But what are we launching into the world? It's, yes, so speech. My mum used to say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more. Speak less.
I wanted to ask about doing nothing. You told when urges come to do nothing. So I feel like not to do nothing is a choice. So if the urges come, I choose either I interact with it or I take distance and learn from it. And sometimes you know if you interact, you're gonna spoil your life or whatever, and you can learn. So, but from where do you get the strength to do nothing, and how do you build up the muscle to do nothing?
Yeah. So usually I give people another acronym to overcome temptation. I tell people it will cost you. C stands for conviction. You develop the strength to do nothing when you're convinced that doing nothing will lead you to something amazing. You have to be convinced that on the other side of this, there's something way better. There's something much more valuable. Are you going to listen to your loudest desire, or are you going to listen to your deepest desire? Don't give up what you want most for what feels good now. That conviction is life-changing. Therefore, one must connect deeply with that deep desire that one has. One must be convinced. I must. O stands for openness. You have to have open relationships with others with whom you can share your success and failure. You know, there's no purity without honesty. And therefore, one of the biggest factors in conquering temptation is the ability to be honest in one's weakness. And when divinity, when God, when Krishna observes that honesty, then he rewards that honesty and sincerity with spiritual strength. There's only one leg on which Kali Yuga is remaining. And you know what it is, right? I won't lie to you. Truthfulness. And therefore you may lack mercy, you may lack cleanliness and purity, you may lack what's the other one? Austerity. But if you're truthful, you can make it all back. But the moment we're not truthful, then it's the final nail in the coffin. Therefore, truthfulness. Openness, so that's the O. Then S stands for safety. Remember I said protect the fences that protect you. So always don't compromise. Don't put yourself in situations in which you will be provoked. We just constantly do this again and again. We just expose ourselves to things which are just going to provoke us. Why? Don't fight battles you don't need to fight. And T is the ultimate one, which is taste. You have to taste something better. Raso varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. I once saw Sachinanda Maharaj, because he became a brahmachari very young, I think, like 16, 17, something, and he'd maintained his celibacy. So I said, Maharaj, how did you maintain? And he just looked at me and he said, if you want to maintain, you have to develop some love for Krishna. Some love. That's what will save us. Some love, some fulfillment of the heart, some taste. Because when the heart is filled, then those things don't scream as loudly. So cost. Hope that helps.
Hi Krishna Maharaj. I guess some of the thing about to ask, which you have just answered, but I'm going to still read a few verses from the Bhagavad Gita in the 3rd chapter. And then the follow-up question. So this is text number 4. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Text 5 is everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the quality he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. One who restrains the senses of action but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called pretender. I know we often say, fake it till you make it. And I remember one time you said, don't fake so much that you think that you make it. I still remember that thing you said. So my question to you here, like, how do we go into that zone where we are not thinking that, okay, you know, I'm trying to stop something, but people are still dwelling on those things. And to some degree, we can say that we are guilty of many of those things. So how do we go past those stages?
So you're saying a temptation comes and you're doing nothing.
But you're still dwelling on it.
But you're still dwelling on it, right. Yeah, so when I say the power of doing nothing is not that you should just do nothing for your whole spiritual life. I think I clarified that point. That there are certain times in your life when just not acting, at least on any impulse, is very, very powerful, very, very beneficial. But yes, we have to do other things in our life to basically change the movements of what's going on in our consciousness. Our spiritual teachers tell us that to some extent, while you have a material body, urges will come. Therefore, in this verse I quoted from the Nectar of Instruction, it says that one who is able to control these urges, Vishaheta Dhira, Sarvam Apimam Pritivim Shashishat, such a person can become a guru. A guru is not someone in whom these urges don't come. A guru is someone in whom these urges come, but they've lost faith. They have no more faith in these things. And therefore, there's no question of acting on them. So gradually, what we're doing is when these things come, we're learning how to refine our consciousness in such a way that we don't have faith in this anymore. Lose faith in material desires. Maybe in this life we won't lose material desires. When you have a material body, to some extent material desires will come. But no more faith. And how does that happen? Through association, through spiritual study, through the higher taste, through... so yes, it's like this. So yes, fake it till you make it. But as I said, those footnotes, you only said one of them. There are 3 footnotes to that. The first footnote is, yes, fake it till you make it. Footnote number 1, don't fake it so much that you think you've made it. Footnote number 2, don't fake it to convince other people that you've made it. And footnote number 3, don't fake it without having a deep, sincere desire in your heart to actually make it. And then when you follow those 3 things and you fake it till you make it, then you make it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You once said in a lecture, I like that very much, about what is love.
Yeah.
And you said, for love, there needs to be an intention, and action, and attention.
Action.
Yes.
Action,
intention,
yeah,
action, and attention.
Intention, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, I like that very much, and I also see there's the parallel to Prabhupada, how he translated bhakti with devotional service. Like the devotional part is the intention and the attention, maybe, and then the service, the action part.
Right.
So, yeah, I love that very much. Just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's devotional service is an active. Devotion is an active demonstration of one's heartfelt desire to please someone, to serve someone, and so it's not just a feeling; it's an action. Therefore, in the Sanskrit verse, which is the classic one, which describes what is pure devotion, Anya bhilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam Bhakti Ruttama. Anushilanam is a very beautiful word. It means a cultivation, a demonstration. And so love is not just chemistry. Love is commitment. Once I was giving a class and someone said to me, Swamiji, do you believe in arranged marriages or love marriages? Perfect questions, perfect answers. Okay. So I said, okay. So I said, do all arranged marriages have love in them? He said, some do, some don't. I said, do all love marriages? For those of you who are, love marriages means when you come together, like, that's the normal one in the West. I'm not to say it in a bad way. It is what it is. So I said, do all love marriages have love in them? He said, some do, some don't. So I said, in one sense, it doesn't matter how two people come together. What matters is what do they do after they're together? Because the world puts so much emphasis on chemistry, when what really makes a relationship is commitment. And so, the school of love.
So just a quick question afterwards. Like, where did you get this from? I mean, this wonderful verse from Rupa Goswami, of course.
Which one? The intention, attention,
exactly.
action.
Yeah. So, are there some verses from the Bhagavad Gita where you can reference this, or from Shastra anywhere? Like with this intention, action and attention? Thank you.
You see, when we're trying, what can we offer to someone? We can, in the ultimate sense, we're offering our consciousness, our bhav, isn't it? Bhavagrahi Janardana. So bhav is the ultimate thing that we're offering. So the ultimate thing we're offering is our bhav, our heart. But then in this material world, what is the vehicle with which we've been given to offer our heart and express our heart? That's the subtle and the physical body. So then the subtle means your intelligence, your mind, your cognitive abilities, and the physical means your energy, what you can actually do with your body. And so from that, it's basically like, intention means your heart. Attention means your subtle capabilities. And action means your physical. And so, maybe that's where I got it from.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, I see hands.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks for being here, first of all. I'm watching your videos also in Instagram and in YouTube, and I just want to ask you, when you're a guy, you're highly driven, like energetic with circumstances, with sexual things, stuff like that. How can you control those things much more than in the daily basis?
How do we control the impulses, especially the sexual impulse, which is very strong in this day and age? Yes, it's so the Bhagavatam says, Pumsha striya mithuni bhavametam tayo riddaya granti mahur atho griha kshetra sutapta viter janasya moho yamaham memeti. The Bhagavatam says the basic principle of material existence is the attraction between sexes. And when this attraction comes about, then material life expands. Griha, there is family. Kshetra, there is a whole kingdom that you develop around that family. Sutta, there are then children and extensions of yourself. Apta, relatives. Viter, money. Janasya moho yamaham memeti. And the risk is that one becomes more and more rooted in an illusion of I, me and mine. So it's very, very, it's what the material world is moving on. And the whole purpose of spiritual life is to turn lust into love. And so, all of these things that I mentioned to you, I gave you the COST acronym: conviction, openness, safety, but then ultimately taste. Without that, you can't give up these things. So yes, sometimes people can't understand, how can you live like without, how can you be celibate? How can you? People can't understand this, because if you don't have anything beyond that. So this is why what Srila Prabhupada brought to us and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings, this experience of ecstasy in Krishna consciousness, is the only saving grace. So yes, much more can be said, but it's a cultivation that we have to.
And the second question is, you have surroundings of people, which like mother, dad, relation, like cousin, uncle. And me and my mom's a great devotee, and I had the luck to come in her way, and I'm still struggling in the material world to follow her footsteps. And on the other side, my dad, they're also lovely people, but they can understand what we are going for as a purpose. And my question is, how can we also pull them to our Krishna consciousness?
Good luck. Yeah, it's like that. They think you're mad. You probably think they're a little bit mad.
They don't go to restaurant.
Yeah, like, what's the big deal? Yeah, so what can we say? Krishna consciousness changes us. Like I often say this, my mom, once she came to me and it was very nice, she just said can't you just be normal? I said, it's too late, Mum. I'm trying very hard. Bhaktitirtha Maharaj once he said, those who are now considered normal accept the values and principles of an insane world. So if people look at you and say you're normal, you should be like, oh my God, I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be normal. So yes, when you become established in the spiritual path, it will create strains in relationships. Let's just be very honest about it. You're changing, and that creates an insecurity within other people, because they're like, I'm not going to be able to relate to you in the same way. Therefore, we must be very kind, we must be very patient, we must be very understanding, we must be everything that I was not. Basically, I'm telling you everything I was not. Because it's difficult. First thing is, we have to understand it's difficult for your relatives when you become. We just think it's natural. Yeah, I'm going on this journey, I'm dancing on the street, I'm telling everyone we meet, we're going home, we're going back to God. And we just think it's very natural, and other people are looking at us from the outside like, what is this like? We become so oblivious when we're on the spiritual path to how different we are becoming to people around us. From everything, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you just do things, it's just you just become like a different species almost. It's devotees, they do all these things, it's. I remember once when I was going with one devotee to the petrol station, so they were put 60 pounds in. So I put 60 pounds in, and then he goes, press it once more. So I go, but it's already 60. He goes, no, get it to £60 and 1 pence. So I was like, but why? And he said, because in the gas station, they never ask you for the extra penny. But then it means that they're donating 1 penny to the Sankirtan movement. Okay. All right, I never thought about it like that. You know, it's like, okay, every time I'll do £60 and 1 pence. Then. It's like we do all these things. It's just strange for people. It's just like, why? Like, just be normal. We can't be normal. We're changing. So the first thing I think we have to realize, we are changing. We're becoming very different, and we have to be sensitive about that. And then we have to try to be as relatable as possible. We have to try to bring them on the journey. We have to try to include them. We have to try to share good fortune with them, bring them prasadam. And if they're like, no, I'm not eating anything from the Hare Krishna temple, then spike their drink with Maha water. So that's allowed. And just give mercy. And then what can we say? You can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Even the great souls, they were not able to necessarily make all of their family members. Everyone is an individual on their path. But be kind, be patient, be encouraging.
Raj, I had 2 questions, if you please allow. One is, when you were speaking of the power of nothing, I was reminded of this thing you say about the power of disconnection. That every day, and I'm trying this now, a month and a half, to really sincerely disconnect every day, at least 1 hour. And most days it has been successful. But then I also find that there are days when I'm not able to disconnect. And I can see that this disconnection is so powerful, especially if you're a person who's intellectually very stimulated. But what about the days when I'm not able to disconnect? Because I see the beauty in disconnection, and I see that I need it, but at the same time to be okay with the fact that maybe for a few days or even for a few weeks you cannot disconnect. So
you cannot because you don't have the space, or because
Yeah.
you just can't, you don't have the headspace?
No, it's just in relation to the time and space, because you have enough
because
lined up.
you're busy in life, yeah. Yeah, life is never so structured. I was always told, read 1 hour a day. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I always struggled with that. But then what I started trying to do is do 7 hours of reading a week. And I just found that easier to do. It's the same thing, but it's just framed in a different way. In other words, we have busy lives, we have things we have to attend to. Sometimes, you're in a period of your life when you just have to accept that it's a period in which I have to give a little bit more energy to my material situation. Sometimes it's like that. It's exam time or whatever it may be, a newly born child, a mother who's just had a child. I must disconnect 1 hour every day. Good luck. I mean, it's just not possible. So life is like that. Life is just moving. It's unpredictable, and the principle is that I need breathing space in my life, right? Ayurveda tells us 50% solid, 1/4 water, and 1/4 sweets. Not my joke. 1/4 air, because you need some space for digestion. Otherwise, what will you learn in life? It's just when we're packed back to back, day to day, week to week, not learning from life, not seeing Krishna's hand, not seeing the beauty in everything around us, and all the while life is passing us by. So sometime, and it may not be every day, yes, my formula is every year disconnect for 1 month, every month disconnect for 1 day, and every day disconnect for 1 hour. That's the formula. You can try. But then, just make sure there's breathing space, however you do it. We have to become introspective. Such a challenge in Kali Yuga. Such a challenge in a busy world. To actually become thoughtful.
Thank you, Maharaj. And my second question is about honesty and vulnerability. And it's a bit of a personal question, because like now when I observe, as a child I was not much of a talker. And then it's very recently in my life, maybe not so recent, but much later in my life I realized to be dependent on relationships. Dependent in the sense to share and seek help and things like that. And then what I see, my tendency now is that then I place my trust in parts, in different people, not in one person entirely. And sometimes I think if that's a problem. It's like different individuals, they know a certain vulnerable part of me, and not one person knows everything. So I don't know, maybe that's a strategy.
Distribute the information. Yeah, it's. I think I relate to your point. Like, I was also this type of person. Like, I don't go around to people like talking about myself. I just find that like very like. Even now, when people come to me and they're like, you know, devotees are also very nice. You know, they're like, you're sannyasi, and you know, you also need someone to speak to. I mean, it's in a nice way, You know, they say, because, you know, you're giving, and you also need, so let's, tell me. And it's just like, I'm just not that type of person, you know? Like, I'm not just like, oh, yes. And I'm not saying people who are like that, I mean, I find it very amazing when people come to me and are just so open. And they just share, like, I'm like, wow, there's so much, like, I'm not that type of person. So once I said this to a devotee, like years ago, I said, like, I just don't, it's not that I don't want to open up, or I don't, you know that I need to open up. I'm just not that type of person, like, okay, like, you know. So then, he told me 2 things, which really helped me. He said the first thing is you have to develop such close friendships with individuals that you end up being open without even knowing it. You know, like there's some people you're not like, okay, now I need to call up to like, basically in the course of a conversation, because you have such confidence and such connection, then you actually begin to just talk about it, like just be friends with someone. And so that really helped me, and I found that, yeah, then again in like just friendships, it would just come out, whatever I needed to share. And the second thing he said to me, which caused me to begin journaling, because I often talk about journaling, and he said journaling is very beautiful because it's a place in which you're honest first to yourself. The easiest place to be honest, or the first place to often start in your honesty, is, can you be open with yourself? And when you're open with yourself, then it is almost a training ground to then also be more expressive with others who can help you. So that also helped me as well. So yeah, these are things that we can think about. I don't know if that helps, but I don't know how we're doing for time. Like, should we finish or should we carry on? Or, I don't know. Okay, carry on. All right. Yes. Okay. So some here. If any, by the way, if someone needs to kind of like disconnect from this session, then no offense is taken. You can be yourself.
So thanks
so thank you so much for coming and being open-minded to come to the Hare Krishna temple. Welcome. This is your home. And this is what we kind of do in the evenings. We just kind of sit around and talk about life. Become philosophers. I hope it helped.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for being here. Thanks for welcoming me. I love being inspired by philosophies. So I also do believe that not everyone functions the same way. So I'm not the kind of following rituals, but just see what works for me. So whenever in everything I do, I pour my whole heart in, I follow my intuition. I always try to do good. But I see nothing bad. It's, let's say, for example, to have a snack at midnight, because this is something that I have. Let's say I have an impulse, I have temptation, I want to eat something. Yeah. I fulfill my dreams and I stay happy. And when I'm happy, I'm healthy. So this is kind of my mindset. So my question is, why should I try to control my temptation instead of fulfill them to be happy?
Wow, that's such a good question. Thank you so much. Okay, let's think about this. So your point is that, which is a point well taken, that your body may say certain things, and we kind of go with the flow of the body. Yeah. One spiritual master in ISKCON actually said that. Should I name who it was? I mean, because I heard this secondhand, but okay, I'll just say it anyway. It was His Holiness Bhakticharya Maharaj. Someone just told me a story recently that someone was with him, and anyway, in the middle of the night, he was like up in the kitchen getting something. So anyway, so then the devotee came in and said, like, "Do you need any help? Do you need any help?" So he's like, "No, I'm just, you go back to bed." And then he woke up in the morning, and he spoke to Bhakticharya Swami, and apparently this is what he said. He said, I asked, like, what were you doing? And like, everything was okay, he said. And then he said, like, yeah, when I'm hungry, I eat. When I'm tired, I sleep. And, when I want to do something else, I just do that, So it was quite an interesting point, that there's something by which, yes, there is a sense that your body also speaks. Like when you're in tune with your body, and not just your body, there's an intuition there that you're very connected with, and you just kind of go with that flow. I think we would agree with that. Like, so in the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, what we understand is that we're a spiritual being, we're a soul, and we're driving this body. This body is a temple, it's a vehicle. But what the Bhagavad Gita explains is that side by side is a super consciousness, what we call a super soul, or divinity who is kind of walking through the journey of life with us. And what the Bhagavad Gita basically says in a very beautiful verse, Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. What Krishna basically says is, when one has conquered the mind, then the super soul is already reached. So basically, what the Bhagavad Gita is saying is that there are two voices within us. There's the voice of the super consciousness, the super soul, the voice of intuition, but there's also the voice of the mind. And those are two distinct voices. And oftentimes, there's the tendency to get mixed up. So sometimes we think something is an intuition when it's actually the mind. So in the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, we're a soul, but we have a mind and we have this physical body. So the mind is a storehouse of memories, a storehouse of previous experiences and impulses. And periodically what happens is the mind comes up with different things. And the job of the soul is to sift through all of the different things that the mind is coming up with, to actually understand what's beneficial. Now, as you become more and more spiritually accomplished, then jitatmana, you conquer the mind. And when you conquer the mind, and that voice has basically become very quiet, Paramatma Samahita, then you're connected with superconsciousness, and therefore you just go with your voice. But until we're there, there's always the tendency that the mind can come up with destructive things which, if we identify with, may take us away from our cherished aspirations. So, like once I was on the London Underground at rush hour, and they have escalators which go down, so it was like packed. So I got on the top of the escalator, and then this voice went inside of me like, what would happen if I pushed the person in front of me? It's like, okay, go with the flow. So it was totally, I had just come back from the temple, I had just been meditating, like I just did the whole spiritual program. And it was like, what? Because the mind, in a famous book called the Niti Shastra, there's a verse, Markatasya surapanam tatra vrishchikadam sanam tanmadhye bhutasam charo tadva bhatva bhavishyati. Imagine in your mind a monkey. Now imagine a drunk monkey. Now imagine a drunk monkey bitten by a scorpion. And now imagine a drunk monkey bitten by a scorpion and haunted by a ghost. Yadva tadva bhavishyati. Who can understand what such a monkey will do next? And what this scripture basically says is our mind can be like that when you're very young, obviously. So the point I'm making is that yes, there is truth to what you're saying. And as we become more and more accomplished, we can just go more and more with the flow of intuition. But until that time, we all have the experience. I think even you would have the experience that sometimes voices come in your head to do things or say things, or
I do
that you would be like, I don't know if I should do that, like maybe that's not the best. Does that ever happen to you? Like sometimes?
Before, but since I do martial arts, I know how to, let's say, control or be centered.
Okay.
I'm just free in my mind, so I don't.
Wow.
And that's why I'm starting now to sleep when I want to sleep. I eat when I want to eat.
Oh, okay.
It's like
yeah. No, but thank
go.
you. No, I mean it's it's possible. Maybe you've done it. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations. Wonderful.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, and thank you for the thoughtful lecture. I have two questions. One question is related to a broader view, a community-based. Yesterday evening, in the lecture related to environment and cow seva, there was a slide which Maharaj had presented, which showed that there is a distorted view of the community because it's anthropocentric, human-centric. And if there would be animal citizenship, and I also thought if there could be resource citizenship, then it would become balanced. And then listening to your lecture, I was just thinking, because we are discussing so much about urges, urge to speak, urge to control anger, urge to show affection. Is it also, I mean, with all respect to the Shastras, I believe in them, I follow them, but is it also because it's anthropocentric? We think only about the society, and that's why we have to control our urges. For example, lion, it could roar, sparrows can sing, peacocks can dance, dogs can bark, nobody judge them, nobody say anything. But being a human, we all have to control our urges. And if it will become like not anthropocentric or humanly centric, but like connected with the nature, will we be able to express what we really want to express, the urges we don't have to control but show it? And what's your thoughts about it?
Wow, thank you so much for connecting the two lectures. Are the scriptures anthropocentric? Interesting question. It seems as though, yes, they are anthropocentric, in the sense, Maya mukta jivara nahi svata Krishna gyan. I have forgot the other line. Try to make that rhyme at least. Jivare kripaya koile Krishna Veda Puran. That why were the scriptures given? Why were the scriptures written by Vyasadeva? Jivare kripaya, as a offering of love to the living beings. And why was it an offering of love to the living beings? Maya mukta. Because the living beings are, the humans are bewildered. They don't know who I am, where I am, what I am, where I'm going. We have no idea. And so we are given the scriptures by Vyasadeva as a means to understand who we are. So are the scriptures anthropocentric? Because the human life is a unique life. It's a life in which we have volition. It's a life in which we can make decisions. It's a life in which we have some level of discrimination. It's a life in which we can make inquiries. And therefore the scriptures are meant to tell us how to utilize that intelligent capacity we've been given. Now, the intelligent capacity can also be misused. And therefore what we find is that humans create problems in their communities that animals don't have. Right? With all our great intelligence, what we've actually done is we've created so many artificial problems. And therefore animal life sometimes seems like so much more natural, so much going with the flow, like there's no inflation in the bird kingdom, there's no like problems of, it's all balancing out. Why do humans have so many problems? Because humans have intelligence, and that intelligence can be utilized to elevate, and it can also be utilized to degrade them into animalistic and below animalistic behavior. And so, yes, these scriptures are given to the human specifically, because the human life is a very valuable life. And they're given to help us to understand how to use our intelligence properly. Because anything like intelligence or knowledge is very powerful, but it can also be very powerfully destructive as well. And so, yeah, these are some thoughts. I hope I'm somewhat addressing your question.
Thank you, Maharaj. I also have one personal question. This is related to the art of doing nothing. I practiced it for several months, and I was quite successful in decreasing my burnouts and stress. However, the problem, and I'm going through that challenge, is to restart with my full energy. So, earlier I was doing a lot of things with a lot of enthusiasm, passion, but then when I completely stopped, like literally stopped, I just did service of Krishna, nothing else, for weeks, months. And I just did few things which were necessary, that's it, in household life. And now I am struggling with the challenge that how to rebound, and I also sometimes face a challenge when I discuss things with people, because earlier I had very strong arguments. I had a power to discuss and even get what I want in a way. But now because I practiced it so much to hold all my emotions and all urges so much, that now I can't
engage with the world. So sometimes you feel like doing nothing or being in solitude or going away from the world is very beautiful, but then what happens is you can't really come back to the world and relate or connect or engage in the same way because you've almost gone into a... Yeah, so that is a great art, how to switch modes. What we tend to do is we take every part of life with us wherever we go. So that's why some people, they just can't switch off from work. It's 5 o'clock, work's over, but they're at home and they're still in their mind working because they can't switch to another mode. The great spiritual people know how to switch between scenarios. They know how to focus on what they're doing in the present moment. And that means when you're in solitude, then be in solitude. And when you're out in the world, then do it with conscious endeavor and effort. And so that requires some obviously more spiritual accomplishment. But actually, if you do solitude and disconnection in the right way, what it should actually do is empower you and enthuse you to actually go back into the world and do more beautiful things. Every year I used to take a month out, and I used to go to a place, obviously, you know, Vrindavan. I used to go to Krishna's place, Vrindavan. And for 1 month I'd disconnect. I'd like pretty much 80%. Check emails maybe once a week, or like just really like go off. And at the end of that month, I felt so invested that I was like, I need to go out and share. I need to give. The rhythm of life is that we breathe in, and then we breathe out, and then we breathe in, and we breathe out. That's the rhythm of life. And so solitude and disconnection is not an end in itself in Krishna consciousness. The end of Krishna consciousness is service. Everything is service. When we contribute powerfully to other people's lives, to the world, when we touch people's hearts. The goal of a devotee is to touch as many hearts as you can in this life. We're walking through this world, how many hearts can I touch? That's where happiness comes from. But when you take some time to connect with yourself, connect with God, then you go out and you can touch people. You can't take the world to a higher place than what you've reached internally yourself. So actually, if we do it in the right way, then it should cause us to want to be more active in the world. Srila Prabhupada lived for 6 years in Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. It's not like it was now. It was just a quiet, lonely village. No cars, no rickshaws, just a few cows strolling by. Srila Prabhupada was a lone mendicant. He stayed there for 6 years, praying, studying, becoming empowered. And what was the net result of it? He left in 1965. And he came out from that situation. And then he traveled the world 14 times. One devotee said, Prabhupada, I just want to stay rooted at your lotus feet. He said, it will be very difficult because I'm always moving. Moving, extremely active, leave no stone unturned, ready to go anywhere, ready to do anything, ready to give 100% of effort. Once His Grace Brahmananda Prabhu was with Srila Prabhupada the whole day. Prabhupada had woken up at 2 o'clock, he had translated for the first few hours, then he gave the class, Then after that he met the devotees. Then he went to meet some contacts outside. Then he came back. And then he had a press conference. Then he gave another class. Then they went for an evening program. And at the end of the day they were coming back in the car after a whole day. And Srila Prabhupada was dozing off. And you know, Brahmananda was healthy, as they would say in India. And he said Prabhupada just dozed off. And eventually Prabhupada was in his lap. So he was, at the end of the day, he was looking. So it's Srila Prabhupada in his lap. And he looked at his spiritual master and he said, he just gave every bit of energy. Everything he had. He gave it all in service. And he was just, he was touched. Because that is our life, to serve. At the end of life, what will count? The moments in service. So we want to be active in the world. And your times of disconnection should empower that.
Thank you, Maharaj. One very small question. How did Prabhupada came out? Was it only chanting and scriptures, or can you suggest some tools?
How did Srila Prabhupada, so I didn't catch the first.
How did he came out of that zone?
How did he come out of that? I don't think he was ever coming out of that zone. Apparently there was once Prabhupada was doing a TV interview. So they mic'd everyone up and everything. So the guy was on the sound desk. So they were just getting ready for the interview. He goes, no, there's a buzzing sound, some mic's not right, there's a buzzing sound, check all the wires, they checked all the wires, everything. He goes, no, there's a buzzing sound, there's a buzzing sound. He goes, like, they checked all the equipment and it was still buzzing, and then later on they realized it was just Prabhupada, like, because oh, it's the Swami. He never stops chanting. He's just there all the time. Like Sadatam Kirtayanto Mam Tantaschad Hridavrita. Srila Prabhupada, when he was sharing Krishna consciousness with the world, he was just it was just an overflow of what was in his heart. He wasn't like, okay, now I'm coming to give a class, quick, get the script, get the points, write it down. No, it was just, here I am, I just share my heart with you. When Prabhupada was writing, it wasn't like, okay, now I have to write. He said, these purports are my devotional ecstasies. So it's almost as though his internal life and his external contribution were just seamlessly integrated. He was what we call distributing the overflow. When someone is so filled, they just kind of walk around the world and they just like effortlessly, just like it's all brimming over their spiritual consciousness, like effortlessly. Prabhupada is, what can we say, of another world, Vaikuntha man. Hare Krishna. I think we should call it a day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your kindness, your attention, your patience. I hope something was there that helps you in your spiritual journey. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj ki jai. Thank you so much, Maharaj, answering all these questions. And I have to apologize to those devotees or guests on YouTube. We got quite a few questions we couldn't ask to Maharaj, so we'll have other question-answer sessions in the future. Please tune in again. Now you're invited to take prasadam outside in the garden, but before you go out I would like to present to you. Maharaj is not only giving wonderful courses, classes, but he's also writing books. And outside at the shop desk, what's his name? Shyam. You will find Shyam, and you can buy, first of all, this is the Tattva book, which is basically some questions question and answers. And then Maharaj, he was quoting a lot from the Bhagavad Gita. I'm not sure if... Do you know the Bhagavad Gita? No. So he was quoting many verses from the Bhagavad Gita. And this year, Gita 3 is some kind of compilation about this book. So even those of you who read the Bhagavad Gita, it will help you to go deeper. If you're interested, please go to Shyam outside, he will help you. Then tomorrow we have another morning class with Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj. And at 11, especially for the community members, we are organizing a Sevak Sangha. Sevak means those who do service, who actively involved in the temple, and Sangha means we come together with Keshav Maharaj and also His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj. So you can come, they will give some inspiration, and again we have some time for question and answers. And Maharaj is then going to Langenthal. We have another temple in Langenthal, which is about an hour from here, and he will give at 5 o'clock the Saturday feast lecture. So if you like, you can also go there. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Anyone wants this? Whoever.